In this section, we're going to talk about active listening. It's one of the most effective communication techniques that unfortunately least importance is given to. Active listening is a communication technique that requires listening with all the senses. As the name suggests, active listening means to participate and engage when someone is communicating with you. This means to fully concentrate on what is being said instead of just hearing the message. Unlike passive listening, active listening is all about building rapport, understanding, and trust. An active listener fully concentrates on what a speaker is saying, makes an effort to understand it, and then responds effectively. Active listening is all about patience. Here are 5 key elements of active listening. Let's walk through these with a little story. Rahul is an active listener. He is having a conversation with his friend Sarah. Sarah is having a difficult time at work. Rahul pays full attention to the conversation and doesn't get distracted even when his phone rings. Rahul is very surprised and shocked when Sarah describes all the trouble she has had with a colleague. Rahul has lots to say, but he is patient and doesn't jump in with comments. Instead, he lets Sarah talk and express herself. When Sarah is finished, she asks Rahul how to handle the situation. Before replying, Rahul asks her questions to make sure that he is following the sequence of events correctly. He does not want to be biased in any way and prefers to have a clear understanding of the situation. After hearing Sarah's replies, Rahul is able to give her some very good advice. Sarah is very grateful to Rahul for his help and feels a big sense of relief. Throughout the conversation, you will have noticed that Rahul showed Sarah that he was listening carefully. This is a very important element of active listening, and signs of active listening can be verbal or non-verbal. We can all work on strengthening our listening skills and grow as active listeners. Let's look at some useful and powerful active listening techniques that are sure to improve communication flow. Let's start with verbal techniques. Here are some verbal signs of active listening. Let's find out what they mean and understand how we can use them effectively. To show a speaker that you remember can be a very powerful skill. You can do this by referring to elements of a previous conversation or situation that are relevant. Like in a casual conversation, when you meet a friend saying, "Didn't you have an interview last week? How did it go?" shows thoughtfulness, care and concern. This will be very much appreciated. The Q&A process is integral to active listening. Ask relevant questions to engage the speaker and ensure that the message you have received is complete. Likewise, if a speaker asks you a question, ensure that you answer it appropriately. If you have not been actively listening, you may get caught out. Asking and answering effectively will reinforce that you have been paying attention and are showing interest. Clarification is a form of questioning, but it's a particularly important technique because it can prevent misunderstandings. If you are in any doubt with respect to the message being conveyed, it's always good to clarify. Clarification questions can be simple and direct, for instance, if you just want to know when a deadline is. Alternatively, you may use open questions to clarify, when you would like a speaker to expand on certain points they have said. Reflection and summarization can be used to demonstrate understanding. You can do this by repeating what you have heard in your own words or paraphrasing the message by taking the main points and reiterating them in a logical and clear way. This gives the speaker a chance to correct you if necessary. Also, by putting the message in your own words, you concentrate more on what was said, making you listen better. At work, summarization is particularly useful because it can save time and help to avoid misunderstandings. For example, if you have had a work call or meeting, it is very useful to summarize details in writing via email, especially when important items or decisions are involved. Finally, encouragement by positive reinforcement and acknowledgement are also active listening techniques. What do we mean by this? Using words or phrases of positive encouragement can really boost a speaker's confidence. Be careful not to overdo it though. Subtle phrases like, I understand, or asking, what happened next, can also encourage a speaker to continue and open up if they are hesitant. Now, if a friend is going through a difficult time, acknowledging this and offering moral support will go a long way. This is also a form of encouragement. Signs of active listening can also be nonverbal. As we know, it's good to be aware of these techniques as they can impact overall communication. You can show someone that you're listening to them through your body language and gestures. Most will come naturally without thinking, but it's always good to be aware of the signals you send out, especially if they are unintentional. It is expected and usually encouraging for a listener to look at the speaker while they are talking. Eye contact can sometimes be intimidating, so gauge how much eye contact is appropriate given the situation. Combine eye contact with smiles or nods or other nonverbal messages to encourage the speaker along. Fun fact! Did you know that in Japan, people sometimes close their eyes during a presentation or a meeting to concentrate on the speaker's words? It may seem that they have fallen asleep, but this is their way of trying to listen carefully and concentrate fully, and is actually a sign of respect. Small smiles can be used to show that you're paying attention, indicate agreement, or are happy about the messages. Nodding occasionally is also a good way to show that you're listening and that you understand. Posture can tell us a lot about interpersonal interactions. Keep your posture open to encourage a speaker. Attentive listeners tend to lean slightly forward or sideways while sitting and slant their heads towards the speaker. This happens naturally. Now, active listeners should not be distracted. Refrain from fidgeting, checking your phone constantly, looking at a clock again and again, and doodling. In some situations, for example during project meetings, note-taking is appropriate. It shows that you're paying attention to detail and will also decrease the chances of miscommunication or the chance that you forget important information. Taking notes can also help you to focus and shows the speaker that you are engaged. Silence and pauses are powerful listening skills. If someone is trying to speak, you should let them do so. Interrupting or speaking over them is rude and will discourage them. Don't feel the need to jump in and say something whenever there is a pause or period of silence. This can give the speaker a chance to think further, and you should try not to interrupt their train of thought. Pausing before asking or answering certain questions can show thought. For example, if a colleague asks you for feedback on a piece of work, take the time to reflect and compose your thoughts before sharing. Now that we know all about active listening, what role does it play at work? The benefits of active listening are huge. Firstly, active listening is essential to building trust. If employees are not good listeners, the communication process will inevitably break down, leading to miscommunication, misunderstandings, and performance issues. Active listening helps to build an open and transparent workplace, which is a pleasant environment to work in. If employees feel that they are heard, respected, and have a level of trust with their colleagues, they will automatically be more motivated. Active listening can also help to achieve greater productivity by effective prioritization. If, for example, team leaders are aware of what team members are working on, schedules and deadlines can be set realistically. Let's all proactively try to improve our listening skills and become active listeners. The first step is to understand and absorb the techniques we have covered. Then, reflect on them carefully. Think about which areas you need to work on the most personally. Choose 2 to 3 techniques that you will start to cultivate consciously. Notice what changes these bring to conversations you have with people. As with any skill, targeted practice is essential, and before you know it, these techniques will come naturally.